The one thing I've learned about adversity is it's not something that you're supposed to avoid or try to get over or under. You go through it to become who God needs you to be, and you go through it to become who you were meant to be.
Welcome to Stories of Hope in Hard Times, the show that explores how people endure and even thrive in difficult times, all with God's help. I'm your host, Tamara K. Anderson. Join me on a journey to find inspiring stories of hope and wisdom learned in life's hardest moments. My guest today is an author, entrepreneur, adventurer, speaker, and trainer. He's a co-founder of Yoli, a health and wellness company in Washington State in the United States. His best-selling book, How to Select a Network Marketing Company, has sold over 50,000 copies in 7 countries and 3 languages. He is also a husband and a father. I'm pleased to present Daren Falter. Daren, are you ready to share your story of hope?
I'm ready. I'm here. And my company, Yoli, is actually in Salt Lake City. I'm in Washington. Yeah.
That's what it is.
Yeah, absolutely. When I started my company, I told my partners, I said, I'll fly in, I'll commute here for a while, but I'm not leaving the Pacific Northwest because this is my home. I love it here. I won't leave my mountains.
That's awesome. So Daren and I met a number of years ago at a premier author training with author Richard Paul Evans, and we became quick friends, and we've seen each other at numerous author trainings since then, but we've just developed a friendship, and I thought it was time that I brought Daren on the show because he has such an incredible story of hope. Now, Daren, you had an experience early in your marriage that seemed to set the tone for what you wanted to do with your life. Would you mind sharing with us that story and why it changed you and impacted you the way it did?
When I was when I was a young husband, my nephew, who I'd spent a lot of time with riding horses and having, doing bedtime stories. He was about 7 or 8 years old. He was playing with his father with the horses, and he had his hand tied up in the lead rope, and the horse spooked.
Oh, no.
And drug him underneath. And he went for quite a long ways. And by the time his father got him, he was badly. His body was badly damaged, and he held his son while he took his last breath.
Oh.
And I was a young father. I had twin daughters that were just like 2 years old. Had to stay home. We didn't have any money, didn't have money for travel, didn't have money for really living. We were barely making it as it was. This was my wife's side of the family. So she decided, okay, we're just going to take a credit card, put a plane ticket on there, and she's going to go to Utah and be with the family. So she did that. And she spent, it was a beautiful experience. It was very spiritual. It was very moving, but she got her closure and I didn't. I didn't have any closure on that because I wasn't there. I didn't experience any of that. And that experience haunted me for years and years and years, still does, that I didn't have the opportunity to go when I needed to go. And the thing that's amazing to me about a lifestyle where you have time freedom and the money to move is when you need to move, you move. When you need to go and you need to take people with you and stay for as long as you need to go, you do that. Because you say so, because you have that ability to do it. If you need to stay there and take care of people and cancel tickets and change them, over to somewhere else, it's not about boats and planes and automobiles and lifestyle. It's about the freedom of movement to go when you need to go, and the freedom to stay when you need to stay, as long as you need to stay. And no job, no boss, no person is going to say that you can't. You have that freedom. And that's a powerful thing. And I vowed to myself after that happened, I would never put myself in a situation ever again where I didn't have the power to move and go and be at the funeral, be at the wedding, be at the graduation, be at the important things in people's lives, and take anybody and everybody with me that I needed to take.
Wow. What a powerful motivator to a young husband and father, that this is the reason I want to be successful, is because I want to have important time to connect with people when they need me.
Right.
It was like you wanted to be God's light to the world. You wanted
Yeah.
to help others when they needed help. That's
Yeah.
beautiful.
Yeah. And sometimes we get blocked because we're not in a situation where we can. And sometimes we take privileges that we don't earn. Like we're putting things on credit cards that we shouldn't
Mm,
because we're just not there. We're not in a position where we have the freedom to bless other people's lives. It's kind of like when somebody is receiving charity from someone else, and then they're spending all their days serving people, but they're not taking care of their own household. Um, you have to get yourself. You have to be personally self-sufficient first before you can reach out to other people. It's a God-given principle, and so it's a powerful motivator when you realize that freedom can be taken away from you because you don't have the means to go when you need to go.
wow. That is such good advice to think about. And I had a really interesting week this last week where I didn't accomplish some of the things on my to-do list, but I accomplished when I sat down and reviewed my week and I was kind of down on myself. Well, you didn't get these things done. God prompted me. He said, write down what you did get done.
Yeah.
And I wrote it down, and I found that it was I went to a doctor's appointment with one of my children. I went to this with a couple of my other children. I went on a date with my husband. And so the things that I was accomplishing were things that are more important.
Right.
They're those relationship
Yeah.
based,
Yeah. Yeah.
quote unquote, things,
Yeah.
right? That it wasn't just something to do on the checklist, but it was these connections that really
Yeah.
matter,
Well, that's what they say. All the success gurus say. They say before you go to bed at night, you make a list of the top priorities in your life, of the most important things in your life. Um, absolute most important things for your life, your business, your relationships. You just list them in order, and then you hit the first thing first, the second thing second. You go through that list, and when you get to the sixth thing, and all of a sudden your day is gone and you haven't done it, they say procrastinate that. That's the thing you procrastinate because you've done well. And the thing is, you don't go to the sixth thing the next day. You make the new list and you hit it from the top again. You may never get to the sixth thing, and that's okay, because that's how you have success. And if you're putting the most important things for what you consider as success in your life first things first, you'll never fail.
Mm.
You'll never
Because
fail.
you're living life in the right order, right?
That's right. That's right. That's right. It's kind of
Absolutely.
like, that you've seen the analogy where they put the rocks in the jars and the
Yes.
sand and the gravel. It's that kind of thing. You're putting those big rocks in, and sometimes you don't get to the small stuff.
Yeah. But as long as you're getting the right things done, the big
That's
stuff.
right. Big stuff first. Big stuff first. All the other stuff, typically, all the other stuff will work out its way in and out properly if you get the big things in there first.
Such wise wisdom. So one of the reasons I wanted to have Daren on the show is because he's been through some really challenging times. Daren, why don't you talk to us about adversity and some of the adversities you have encountered in your life and how they have changed you and blessed you at the same time?
The one thing I've learned about adversity is it's not something that you're supposed to avoid or try to get over or under. You go through it to become who God needs you to be, and you go through it to become who you were meant to be. That's what life is all about: is the hardships that we have, and the person we become through the process of dealing with those hardships. So, with that said, what are my hardships? First of all, I'm going to share with you some of my financial hardships, my physical hardships, and my emotional hardships.
Okay.
And I'm going to be pretty vulnerable. I started out in my adult life with a dream that I wanted to be, I wanted to have an above average income, and I wanted to have a better than average lifestyle. I wanted to travel. I wanted to have time freedom. And I saw people around me doing that, but I didn't know how to do it. And I saw people, even if as I got into my mid 20s, who were doing that, who are having this incredible success. And I thought to myself, some of them were younger than me. And I thought, well, if they can do it, I can do it. But how come I'm not doing it? What is it? What's the secret? And I really struggled for about 3 or 4 years to try to figure out how to live an unorthodox life, how to make money through an unorthodox career. And the adversity that you go through is mainly the people telling you can't do it.
Right.
You're the people around you that don't believe in it, the people who are traditionalists who want you to work a regular job, your parents, my mom saying, why don't you just get a regular job? And I'm saying, you know, she says, go to college, get a degree, and get a regular job so you have something to fall back on if this other thing doesn't work out. And I'm saying to myself and to her, if I go to college and get a degree, and have something to fall back on, I'm going to fall back. If you have something to fall back on, you're going to fall back. So I kind of had this attitude of, I'm not going to have plan B. I'm just going to have plan A, and I'm going to work it until it works. And so that's what I did.
I love that.
Yeah, I just plan A, and or you could call it plan A, B, C, D, E. Just keep going. But it was always plan A for me from college age on. I bailed out of college about the first year, and I just decided I was going to be an entrepreneur. I was going to be in direct sales. I was going to make money through marketing, independent distributorships, through network marketing. And I really struggled. I struggled with that for several years. And something magic happened at some point where, the struggle, I guess God said, you've struggled enough. And he threw me a bone. And when you find your first little success, you realize it worked. And it gives you so much hope and so much determination and so much excitement that you just push through to go to the next level, the next level. And I could go on forever about all the heartaches and pains and things you go through to get there. But the bottom line is, if you just commit to yourself when you're failing in life to just get up every time you fail, just get up, brush yourself off, and keep going. I do this analogy I can't do right here because we're not in front of an audience, but I do this thing where I do failing forward. I'm really good at taking a fall, like falling on stage, falling off a step. The other day, I fell down 3 flights of stairs, or three steps. Not 3 flights of stairs, 3 steps, because I forgot they were there, and landed on my back, looking up, and I'm still, I'm a little bruised, but I feel pretty good. I mean, I take a fall well, and so I demonstrate that on stage. I fall down, I get up, I fall down, I get up, and I do that like 8 times. And everybody's like, "What's wrong with this guy?" And by the time I finish my last fall, I'm all the way across the room. And so I'm falling and failing forward. But when I get up, I'm about 3 feet farther because I'm a tall guy. And so that's how I've made it. I failed my way to success. And it's amazing because the first time I did that, I tried 7 different distributorships in an industry called network marketing, direct sales, multi-level marketing. I failed in every one of them until the 7th one. It took me 7 tries to get it right. And on that 7th one, I had tremendous success. Then I failed a bunch more on the next try and found another one. And on that next, that last try, I had tremendous success again. And then I did it a 3rd time. So I have had 3 different major successes in my career, and probably 3 times 4, so 12. I've had 12 major, just absolute failures, just total failures. And so my average is 1 in 4.
That's
Every
not
time I've
bad,
tried a
actually.
business. Yeah, I've tried a business. Every time I've put my heart and soul into a business, opportunity, I've succeeded 1 in 4 times, and it's that 4th time that they'll get you. So I realized, and one of the things that helped me with that career, I got to the point where I'd failed so many times, and I had looked at all the criteria for success that I said, okay, I'm not going to pick another direct sales company, a distributorship, until I've looked at every other company. Because if you want to get into the best, you got to look at all the rest. And so I looked at over 200 different home-based distributorships. That was one of my problems, as I'd get into, if anybody's ever gotten into a home-based business, usually it's because you go to a business opportunity meeting and they just pitch you on this amazing thing. And the thing you got to realize is that the opportunity is probably not quite as good as what they're pitching, because
Right.
that's, there's that story. I don't know if you've ever heard this before, but a man goes to, he goes to the pearly gates. He dies and goes to the pearly gates. And St. Peter says, okay, here's the deal. I can let you in to heaven right now, but I have a policy. I need to show you the other place to make sure that you're making the right choice. And so he goes, okay, well, let's get in the elevator. And they go down, 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 open it up. They're in hell. And they look around and everybody's dancing, singing, eating some good food, live band. It looks pretty good. And so he goes, well, you're sure, this looks good. And he goes, well, let's get back in the elevator and let's have a discussion. So he gets back in the elevator, doors close. He says, so, yeah, I like the billowy clouds and the angelic music in heaven and everything. But if I had to choose right now, I think I'd choose this place. I like the live jazz. I like the dancing. I like the food's great. The people look really interesting. And so he goes, okay, that final choice? Yes. He goes, okay. So he opens the doors. He steps out, doors close. And all of a sudden, everybody's screaming. There's fire and brimstone. People are panicking. There are people running around. It's these demons are poking people with their sticks and saying, get back in the cage, get back in the cage. Like, what happened? What happened? He goes, oh, were you just here a few minutes ago? Yeah, we were at the opportunity meeting for for hell. This is reality. So that's that whole story kind of encompasses what some people see at these distributorship opportunity meetings. They go there, they see the best of the best, but they don't realize all the hell that they have to go through to get to to get to their success. And so I went through the process of breaking down and looking behind the curtain on 200 companies, and I narrowed it down to 5, and then I chose one. And when I chose that company, that was the company that I became connected with Robert Allen, who was Rich Paul Evans' business partner for a while, and that's how I ended up meeting Richard through another connection that way through Robert Allen. But that one company, I got involved with that company, and sure enough, over the next 2-3 years, I rose to the top of the company. I had my first really successful opportunity, where I went through the roof with my income. I went full time. I made a 6-figure income after that, and then I became a top leader in that company. But the interesting thing is, of all the companies that I looked at, those 5 that I chose that I could have joined, all 5 are still in business today.
Wow.
So, and that was 1994.
Wow.
I got involved in 1994 with this company, this particular company. I worked it till 1998 as an independent distributor, and I quit because there's stuff going on, and I stopped building anyway. I kept the distributorship. I stopped building, stopped actively participating in 1998. I still to this day get a weekly check, and all I have to do is buy a couple $100 worth of product. I get a weekly check, 20 years later.
So perhaps the one of the lessons then there is to, when you're setting a goal or looking to do something, make sure you do your research.
Right. That's right.
Because it really pays off.
Yeah. Well, and here's what's interesting about that. So that adversity led me to my success, but it also led me to just heaps of success, because my friends all said, hey, you've done all this research on these 200 companies. You ought to write a book. You ought to write a book. And Robert Allen was at the time encouraged people to write books, and Rich Paul Evans always talking about people writing books. And so, but I had friends telling me, write a book. And so I did all this research. I put it into a book over the next few years. And by 1998, I had published my first little booklet called How to Select a Network Marketing Company.
Mm.
And then I did a second edition a few years later, third edition, fourth edition, fifth edition. Now it's, 2000, and it's coming up on 2021. It's in its seventh revision.
Oh my
It's
word.
going to be final. I'm not going to ever revise it again after this, because I'm so sick of revising this book. But I've sold over 50,000 copies of the book in 7 countries and 3 different languages.
Amazing.
And what is great about this book, see, the whole idea of writing a book called How to Select a Network Marketing Company was that I wanted people to think of me as the go-to person if they're looking for a company.
Mm-hmm.
And so what it became was a recruiting funnel. People came to me all the time saying, oh, Daren knows which company is the best. And so they come to me and I just have them join my company. I didn't feel bad about that, because, people say, well, are you objective? But the thing you got to realize is I looked at all the companies and chose this one. As a matter of fact, for a while, I created this binder. It was called it was called Working Smarter, Not Harder: The Good, Bad, and the Ugly of All the Companies in Direct Sales. And basically what it was is a manual of every single company, like 100 companies, profiles, corporate management team, compensation plan, product line, everything there's to know, the good and the bad and the ugly. And that's how I organized. Like, it'd be Herbalife, and it would be the good. This is why I love it. The bad, the ugly. And the
yeah,
ugly
that's awesome.
And so that way they go through, and it's like objective. And I did the good, bad, and the ugly of the company that I was involved with. I said, here's the good, here's the bad, here's the ugly part that I don't like, but it's so much better than the ugly parts of all these other, companies.
Yeah.
So I was very objective about it, and that really served my career well. And that's kind of how I got over those first years. And then eventually went on, built another business with a network marketing company where I became the top 20 distributor out of 1 million distributors, me and a couple of my buddies. And then in 2009, November 2009, I started a direct sales company with 3 of my network marketing distributor partners. And that's what I've done to this day. So we're 11 years old on November 6th. And that's been a wild ride.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
So business successes and failures, the biggest lesson is just keep going. Do your research before you join any company or go after it, right?
Yeah. And I will say one more thing about the business piece.
Please.
Never join a company. You don't pick companies. You choose people. You don't choose organizations. You choose the people behind the organizations. You look for people. It's always people. And this next part is all about people as well. It's about people that you can rely on and count on.
It is so important to have good people that you can rely on and count on at any point in life. And so I know that these financial challenges were not the only challenges you faced in your life. Before we dive into the physical challenges and diagnosis you received, let's take a quick break. But when we get back, would you mind telling us about that and how those physical challenges taught you even more?
You bet.
How many of you out there feel like your life is chaotic, crazy, and completely awful compared to the norm? What if I were to tell you that you are normal for you? I am so excited to announce that my book, Normal for Me by Tamara K. Anderson, is now available for purchase on Amazon. This book took me 10 years to write, and I share 20 years worth of lessons learned in my life detours, including being in a car accident and having 2 of my children diagnosed on the autism spectrum. In this book, I share the secrets of how I made it from despair to peace with God's help. I also include a bonus diagnosis survival guide at the very end of my Normal for Me book. The Diagnosis Survival Guide includes 12 tips to survive and thrive in tough times. Wouldn't you like to know what those are? So what are you waiting for? Grab your copy of Normal for Me today on Amazon. And we're back. I'm talking to Daren Falter, who is an author, entrepreneur, adventurer, speaker, and trainer. And we've been talking about financial hardships and an important lesson he learned when he was a very young married. And now we're on to physical challenges because Daren has had quite a challenging road, and yet he hasn't let it keep him down. Daren, why don't you tell us a little bit about that?
You bet. So, as I was building the company that I own is called Yoli, Yoli.com, YOLI. And as I was building Yoli, I started having some physical issues. I started having some issues with my breathing. I had this pneumonia for a while, got over it, but I just couldn't get back to feeling like I was 100%, and my breathing was off. I was wheezing a lot. Thought maybe I got asthma. So I go into the pulmonologist, and he does a few tests, and he goes, "You have a paralyzed diaphragm on the left side." So my left diaphragm is completely paralyzed. The left lung lobe is completely, healthy lung tissue, but it doesn't pull down to fill with air like a normal lung. So it just sits there without any activity. The right lung does all the work. And so he says, there's really nothing you can do about it. Just, live your life and, exercise. And so I was a mountaineer. From my whole life, I've been backpacking and hiking. And around 40 years old, right when I was starting with my Yoli business, I started climbing mountains with my climbing buddy. And we climbed a lot of mountains, and mostly in the Pacific Northwest Washington area. And all of a sudden, it was really hard to do because I couldn't breathe at altitude. And so I trained for a whole year because we had this goal of climbing Mount Rainier, and one day we wanted to climb Mount Rainier. And it took me a year, but in a year, after a year of training hard on the stair machine and running and doing all these things, I didn't notice my lung anymore. I think I built up this mega lung on the right side or something. The mega lung.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So that kind of went away. And then all of a sudden, it's still hard to do, but I compensated for it. And then all of a sudden, I started having these issues with my gait walking. Like I had trouble keeping a rhythm. My left leg wanted to drag all the time, drag my foot. I had a funny kind of a stance. My left arm always wanted to come up and hang here instead of swinging freely. It just came up and got really stiff. I had this thing called frozen shoulder for a while. I was starting to have a little bit of tremors, and I just didn't know what was going on. I thought maybe I had a stroke that I didn't know about. So I went into the neurologist, and he was nervous to diagnose me. I think he knew what it was, but he didn't want to say what it was. So he sent me up to the University of Washington to a specialist up there. And the guy looked at me. He didn't even do any tests or anything. He didn't do any like taking any fluids out or doing any kind of brain scan. He just watched me and he said, "You've got Parkinson's."
Really?
Yeah. It's observational. And I said, "Wow, that's pretty amazing, Doc. You're just looking at me, you watch me walk. You got Parkinson's." Like, that's a bold statement.
Yeah.
And so then I got a list of the symptoms. He goes, "Here's your symptoms." And I looked at it, I said, I could have diagnosed myself. I got all of those things. and it was kind of a shocker, but it was also, it was good to know because then I knew what to do about it, because I didn't know how any treatment, and it got worse and worse and worse. And it started getting to the point where I was having trouble walking in stores and carrying things, and my balance was off. I was having trouble climbing. I couldn't climb. And so as soon as I started getting treatment and taking medications and the nutritional supplements and the diet that I was referred to, I had a lot of improvement.
Wow.
So yeah, it was a challenge. And the funny things about it, I tease all the time. One of the things, like when I'm in a group of people, this is pre-COVID. I'm in a group of people, and if somebody bumps me on the arm or bumps me while I'm walking or when I'm standing, I can tip over, or I take a step because I don't have very good balance,
Mhm.
which is not great for a mountaineer.
No.
Um, and so I would say, um, if I reach out and grab you on the way down, I take no pleasure in it. It's just the survival technique, and I'd always get people laughing at that, because I'm always falling and trying to reach out to grab somebody on the shoulders or whatever, their arms, like, oh, whoa, whoa, whoa. So I noticed that. There's a thing called restless leg that's really a challenge with Parkinson's. It sometimes causes me to be claustrophobic in small places. I can't move my legs. I can't stretch them out. And so I get claustrophobic. I get anxiety, like on an airplane sometimes. One time I was sitting at the bulkhead in first class, and I couldn't stretch my leg out. And so I got panicky and I stood up real fast, smashed my head on the top, because
Oh,
I'm
no.
tall. And it was just like this vicious cycle of problems. And the stewardess saw I was in distress. She says, "Are you okay?" And I said, "Could I move to a non-bulkhead seat?" And it took care of the problem. But restless leg is a big issue with Parkinson's, tremors, the stability issue, this just chronic fatigue. You're always so tired and you have to take naps. But
Do they know
one
what
thing,
causes Parkinson's, Daren?
it's the lack of dopamine naturally produced in the brain. It causes you to not have enough dopamine, and so you can supplement with that. I don't know if you've ever seen the movie Awakenings with Robert De Niro and Robin Williams.
I
But
have
the
heard of
people,
it, but I have
yeah,
never seen it.
that's your next movie, by the way. That's an
Okay.
amazing movie. Now, these people had a special type of Parkinson's. It was another disease based on a child. All had a childhood disease that they overcame, and then or actually were hit by hard, and then in their later life they had Parkinson's combined. And so it was this thing where they're sitting and they're comatose. They're sitting there not doing anything in like a wheelchair. They throw a tennis ball and they catch it,
Oh,
like
wow.
they haven't moved for days, for weeks, for months, and they throw a tennis ball and they catch it and they go, "Oh, something's going on here." And so then they started experimenting with this dopamine drug like we take for Parkinson's, and all of a sudden they just become awake again. They become alive. They don't have any symptoms. People
Wow.
that haven't talked to their loved ones in 30 years, um, when I get dopamine in my system, all of a sudden I seem pretty normal, and I get the right amounts and the right combination. And then when it weans off, the other day I was in the store and it kind of weaned off and I got stuck. I was just like hopping to try to get the checkout standards. Like, what's wrong with this guy? Is he
Oh,
going to
no.
attack us or whatever? People look at you funny, but so they are doing experiments with new drugs and new testing and the little implants that you put in the brain stem called deep brain stimulation. So there's a lot of different things on the horizon. Even the inventor of Tesla, what's his name?
Elon
Elon
Musk?
Musk. Elon Musk has a little chip he's been playing around with inserting into pig brains, and they're responding to it. So I'm going to get the little pig brain chip one of these days, and hopefully do some amazing things. But I will say it's a real challenge with Parkinson's. But the thing that has taught me, I kind of feel like if God came down and said, "Daren, I'm going to take away your Parkinson's, but I'm also going to take away the things that I gave you in exchange for that," and I would say, you know what? No, I'm good, because a couple of things that is blessed me with is, number one, it's given me a tremendous sense of compassion for people. I can sit down with somebody, they see that I'm tremoring, they see I'm having some problems, and when you are vulnerable like that and you talk about your disease, people come up and they say things to you they never would have said to anybody else because they become vulnerable. They let their guard down, and they become absolutely. Um, it becomes a gift to be able to connect with people instantly, instantaneous connection. It's like a superpower,
Yes.
and I don't want that to go away. So I love that. The other thing it's given me a gift of is I think of my life now in a way that it's sped up. Like everything I do, it has a sense of urgency that I have never had before. I've gotten more done in the last year than I've gotten done in the last 5 years,
Hmm.
because I know I may not be able to do some things in my later life that I plan to do. And so my bucket list has gone, where
To
I
the
have my
most
timeline out
important
here.
things, right?
Yeah, put it to the front. Yeah, so that's huge. I've been condensing and speeding up my bucket list, and it gives you a whole new perspective on life. It gives you a whole new outlook. And everybody I've talked to who is proactive with their disease, who's active, who wants to make something of their life and do something remarkable with their life, they've said the same thing. They said it's like a huge gift.
Hmm.
Richard Paul Evans talks about his Tourette syndrome as a gift. It was a gift. He didn't feel that way when he was a little boy, when he's getting teased and bullied, but now he realizes that it was one of the greatest things that ever happened to him.
Yeah, no, it's true. Yeah. And you know what's interesting? You say that you talked about that instant connection with people. And I have found that to be true as well. Having kids on the autism spectrum,
Mhm.
people that I don't know very well, they see me with my kids, they'll come up and they'll tell me all about their challenges as well. And I think it's just nice to know, hey, that person has problems. They'll get it when I tell them about my problems, right?
That, that's right.
So I think that's part of what it is
Yeah,
we want to feel understood, and when we see
yeah,
somebody else having struggles and challenges, it almost gives you permission
yeah, yeah,
to share that.
yeah. I had people coming up to me at a conference I was at. I was speaking in front of like 3,000 people, and I told my story about Parkinson's. This lady came up to me afterwards. She said, I have MS, but I haven't told anybody I've had it for 2 years. I diagnosed 2 years ago. I haven't told my own family. I haven't told my own kids about it, and I'm ready to tell them now. And I think, wow, that's big, because it is something that's, disease is considered by a lot of society, somewhat shameful, or to some people it feels like you're less of a person. You're scared that you're going to lose your job. You're going to lose your yeah, I had somebody in my company, since it's a health company, the company Yoli is nutritional supplements,
Mhm.
and we're all about wellness and health and living healthy lifestyles. And there's a woman who got cancer, who was a distributor, and she dealt with it in natural ways. She had complete 100% remission after a number of years,
Wow.
100%. But in the process of going through it, she did do some chemotherapy and some radiation and stuff, lost her hair. She says, I thought I was going to get kicked out, the company. They're going to kick me out because, I'm not a very good spokesperson if I'm promoting nutritional products and I got cancer. And she bawled about that. I thought, oh my goodness, nothing could be further from the truth. But you feel that way. If it's happening to you, you feel you're going to get kicked out. I've got Parkinson's. My Yoli products are not a cure for Parkinson's,
Mhm.
obviously. They help manage it, but I didn't want to get kicked out of my own company, my health company. And you get those insecurities happening when you get a disease, and so people a lot of times don't want to talk about it. But I've from the very beginning, I've always felt very comfortable talking about it, and I volunteer that information almost immediately with people. It helps them to understand why I behave the way I do, why
Yeah.
I've got some funny movements, and why I walk funny.
Yeah. But one of the things I love about you, Darren, is that you have not let this challenge stop you or slow you down. Would you mind telling me a little bit about Mount Rainier and
Yeah,
why it's
yeah,
been calling to your whole life
yeah.
and what you decided to do about that, even with
You bet.
Parkinson's?
Well, I am. Mount Rainier's been calling to me my whole life because I live right by it. Like every time I leave my neighborhood, there it is. It's just looking at you. It's like, and my dad was a mountaineer. He climbed some mountains earlier in his life. Well, not a huge mountaineer, but he did climb some mountains. He climbed Mount St. Helens before the top blew
Wow.
off, and he climbed parts of Rainier. Didn't summit, but he climbed other mountains too. And I always was really interested in climbing Rainier. I thought, it's a big challenge. It's a big mountain. But I kind of chose that a little late because my diagnosis for Parkinson's had, happened, and it was like 3 years later. And so I decided, okay, I'm going to get in shape and I'm going to do this. I've got the lung issue, I've got the Parkinson's issue, but I think I can do this. So me and my buddy signed up for a climb with some guides on Rainier, and it was on the Emmons side up the Emmons Glacier. They require on that particular route to carry 55 to 60-pound packs because you got to get a bunch of gear up to the main camp, and then from there you summit. That alone, I mean, if you've ever put a 60-pound pack on your back and done stairs, it is the absolute worst workout in the history of workouts. I mean, if you're not puking within 10 minutes, there's something wrong. I mean, it's just it's worse than any boot camp I've ever done. Those stair machines are crazy, but that's what I had to do. I had to get to the point where I could do 2 hours on the stair machine with a 60-pound pack, and then I thought I was ready. Wow. So I go on this climb. I got up to Camp Sherman. We spent the night there. You get up at midnight basically and start your summit bit in the dark. And I got up about halfway to my summit, and I was crossing this very narrow ridge that was kind of a pinnacle. You're crossing, and everybody's doing really well. They're just stepping in the steps behind, the person in front of them. But I had my ice axe, which is supposed to give you stability against the side of the hill, in my left hand, which is my Parkinson's affected hand. Very, very low coordination. If I could have just reached over with my right hand and done it the awkward way, I would have been just fine. But they wouldn't let you do it. The guide said you got to do it this way, and I was kind of waffling a little bit. And they're like, "You cannot fall here. This is a do not fall zone." And they were really adamant about that. I said, "Yeah, I'm not going to fall, but I got Parkinson's." And so I've got, and say they saw me wobble 2, 3, 4 times. They said, "That's it. We're turning this guy around."
Oh,
and I said, "Come
no.
on, just give me a chance," and they wouldn't. So they turned me around and sent me back down with the guide. And so I just got down, and I thought, I did everything I could to train for this climb. And I don't think I can do it. My body's not going to allow me to do this. I have the will, I have the fitness, I have the determination. I just don't have the balance. So I sat there, kind of shed some tears there in my camp tent, looking out at the mountains through my opening my tent, and then I just decided, you know what, there's got to be a way. So I went and talked to the guy that brought me down. He said, what you need to do is train up again next year and go up the other side of the mountain. It's a lot easier. It doesn't have these narrow gaps and precipices and crevasses you cross on ladders and things. It's an easier climb on summit day. That's what you need to do, is on summit day, and just see if you can maybe get some help with your guide. Just let them know your situation ahead of time. So what I decided to do is I put together my own team of people that I knew from my company and from my friends, to make sure that that everybody was in on it. Like, they knew my situation, so everybody was okay if we went a little slower or had to take one part of the section of the trail a little slower. And so we did our first Team Yoli Summit team, and basically got up there to about the same place, about 1,000 feet higher than I did the year before. Same thing happened. I got to the point where I was just walking in it was very windy that year. And I was walking a very narrow footpath, and I was just stumbling too much because my Parkinson's. And I turned myself around. I said, "You know what? I'm putting the rope team in danger, and I'm just going to turn myself around." So I did that, and lo and behold, my whole group about an hour later turned the whole group around, because the winds got to the point where they were 50, 60, 70 mile per hour winds up there before the summit.
Wow.
And when we were walking out that day, we were hit with 80 mile per hour gusts. One of my guides who'd been up Everest twice said he'd never been hit with anything that hard. There's little bits of sand that hit you in the face, and it feels like BB guns shooting you in the face,
Oh
leave
my.
little red marks, little red marks. So it was a crazy year. Nobody summited in the whole team. Lots of failures on the summit days for that day on the whole mountain. So that was number 2, strike 2. And both those years, I trained the first year, 30,000 feet of real mountains to climb. That's like going up Mount Everest 3 times and back, to climb. The next year I did 50,000 feet of real climbing. That's like going up and down Everest 5 times. So the third year I said, I'm going to do this. So I did 100,000 feet of real climbing to get ready for that climb, which was 17 different climbs, all equaling about 10 times up and down from base camp Everest to the top and back. That's the equivalent. The difference between Everest and Mount Rainier is that the base camp of Everest is 3,000 feet above the summit of Rainier. That's the base camp. That's where you start from. So it's just a higher elevation.
Right.
But it's the same distance. So I trained up, put together my Yoli team, and this time, for whatever reason, the weather cooperated, my body cooperated, and it was funny because I got up near the summit, and I didn't know I was near the summit because they don't tell you. I think it's a psychological thing. They tell you, keep going, got another push. Here's a 10-minute break. Get your stuff on. We're going for another push. And I get up, and all of a sudden, one of the guides is on his knee taking pictures. And I thought, well, that's weird. He's never taken pictures this whole trip. And as I walk past him, I realize there's no more mountain. It just goes down into a crater. And I realized I'm there. And sorry. I started bawling my eyes out. You couldn't tell because I had my goggles on and had all this, headgear on and my helmet. But yeah, I pretty much couldn't talk. And me and my buddy, who had been trying to do this for years, we walked through that summit cone together. You walk across the top of the it's a crater. It's a volcanic crater. And then there's an actual summit at the far end that you walk up another couple hundred vertical feet, and then you take your picture and you're there. And we did that. And it was just surreal because I still couldn't believe it. And then walking down was just like skipping. I mean,
I bet.
The one thing about climbing with me, people always say, oh, the climb down is just as hard as the climb up. It's not for me. I can run down mountains. I'm so good at going down. It's uphill that gives me a hard time with Parkinson's. So going down was a breeze. You climb all the way to the base of the mountain and go out that day and go home. So it's a long day. It's like a 20-hour day or something. But I was just on cloud 9. I didn't even feel it. And then here's the interesting thing. The next year I went up Rainier again and failed again. But this time I had a whole group of teammates, 3 of which had never summited. My 2 sons who trained with me all year to go, and my climbing partner, Katie Johnner, who had tried several times and didn't make it. And my climbing buddy, Grant Dries, who climbed with me all the time. They all summited, and a few of the Yoli distributors summited. And so I felt good about that. I got up to a certain point and my body just stopped wanting to move. Like I couldn't take another step. It just wouldn't function. But I was all smiles. I had no regrets. And that was my ratio. I remember in business, every 4 times I try, I get 1.
Yes.
I had to keep that ratio. So that was
there
perfect.
You go.
4 attempts, 1 summit.
Yeah. So let me ask you this. What have you learned from failing? What is the biggest lesson or the biggest lessons that you have learned from trying and failing? What could you share with us?
I guess the easiest thing that I learned, is just so simple, is that just keep getting up. I mean, there's nothing that can stop somebody who won't stop after failure. You just get up every time you fall down, and you learn something, and you just can't get discouraged about it. I almost quit, and I wouldn't have had that summit. I wouldn't have had that experience. But I just decided, you know what? I made a big deal about it the second year, and all these Yoli people were pulling for it. Oh, he's going to summit. Yeah, this is going to be great. We're going to, and then I didn't. And I just stopped talking about it because I was so disappointed in myself and so upset I didn't make it. And I thought, well, all I got to do is train and do it in the next year, and when you finally do succeed, all the losses, all the failures just slip away. Like it's like they never happened. but you're never going to get to that unless you keep trying. You got to keep pushing for it, keep trying. I've never met anybody in my career, in my industry, that hasn't ultimately succeeded in the end if they just kept trying, like for 10 years. Just keep trying. Stick with one company, keep trying for 10 years. I've never met anybody who didn't ultimately summit their mountain, the mountain they wanted to climb, if they just kept trying every year. It happens. It's just going to take more time. So.
That is awesome. So let me ask you, you've obviously been very, very successful at setting goals. And here, as we approach 2021, what advice would you give to someone who is perhaps wanting to tackle a big goal? How do you obtain that, Daren? You've seemed to have really figured out a pattern that works for you. How would you break that down for other people who are desiring to set goals for
Yeah,
something really
so
big?
there's a key to that. What I do, so goals are great, and I like to write them down and post them like everybody else does. Written goals are important, but I do something that's even more powerful than that, and I call it visualization. Visualizing very specifically, very concretely, exactly what you want to accomplish. If it's summiting a mountain, you're seeing yourself doing it real time, walking over the crest of that cone, getting into that inner crater, taking pictures with your buddies, maybe doing a vlog from the top or something. But I mean, whatever it is that whatever that summit looks like to you, you visualize that over and over as if it's already happened. It's happening now, or it's already happened. You have summited Mount Rainier. You are a mountain climber. You are successful in your pursuits. If it means becoming a Yoli diamond, that's one of the designations of the leaders in our company. You sleep, breathe, drink, eat. When you get up in the morning, you brush your teeth like a diamond. You have your breakfast like a diamond. You drive your car to work like a diamond. And maybe it's, maybe you're confused because where's my Mercedes Benz? What's this two-tone? What's a car I used to drive? I think I used to have like a Honda Civic that was like 30 years old, and I call it two-tone. It was rust and blue, and like a spider web crack across the front, that I never could fix. One of the doors I joke about, when I first was a young adult, the door would actually fly open when you go around its corner. And so you'd have to say, hey, grab that door. It's the passenger door, and then link arms, so it doesn't fly open.
Oh my gosh, Daren, that's so
but,
funny.
I mean, that's where you start. And so, I think that the key to all this is that you have to really focus in on visualizing specifically what you want and getting it into your heart. Because I mean, a written goal is great, but when you can visualize, like Robert talked about a lot of times, Robert Allen talked about visualizing your dream home, and when you create a dream home, you have to know every single detail of that home, or somebody else is going to choose for you. And if you're okay with that, that's great. But if you don't have the details of every single aspect of that dream home you're building, then somebody else is going to decide it. So you put it down. What, if you're doing a financial goal, what kind of car are you going to drive when you're financially successful? Go down and test drive that car. Go sit in it, get a feel for what the leather smells like, what the steering wheel feels like. Visualize yourself in that, and what will happen is that vision that you have in your mind is like a magnet to your goal. I mean, it pulls you every day, subconsciously, to the people and the circumstances and the opportunities that will bless your life and get you to that goal. It's remarkable. I'm sure that you've probably had some experiences like that in your life when you visualize something so specifically, and then it just manifests itself in your life.
No, that's true. So visualize it. And then obviously you talked about planning to work really hard to get yourself physically fit for that goal.
Yeah.
So you're breaking down, okay, if I need to do this, I need to break it down into bite-sized segments. Okay, this month I'm going to do this. and then break it down by day. Today I'm going to
Yeah.
do this. Is that how you did
Yeah,
that? Or
and it was easy to do because kind of like, somebody a mountain, a person who's in shape to summit a mountain doesn't whine about getting on the stair machine with a pack on their back and walking for an hour, um, because that's what summiters do. That's what guides do. That's what people who are in great shape do. I'm a diamond, and so I do the things that diamonds do. Diamonds don't complain about making 100 phone calls a day. That's what they do, and so you start mirroring the successful behaviors of people that are there already. And again, the visualization is not I visualizing this so I can become it. You're visualizing it as if you've already done it, to the point where when you achieve the downside of doing this is when you achieve that goal, you think, well, of course I'm a diamond. I've been a diamond for a year. I'm now a blue diamond, or I'm now a triple diamond. Give me, what's this diamond award? This isn't what I, this is what I am. So you're always like one or two steps ahead of what you're really getting. That's the only downside, is that sometimes you're a little disappointed when you get your goal.
when you finally get it.
Yeah. And then you finally have to chill out and say, oh, wait a minute, I'm a real diamond. I'm not just a diamond in my mind anymore. So
That is awesome. No, I love that. I love that it kind of goes back to that good old book, As a Man Thinketh, so is he,
yes. Yeah,
that if you believe you can do it, you can.
that's right. That's right. That's right.
So that is powerful, powerful. Now let me ask you a final question before I let you go. Um, were there any Bible verses or stories that inspired you or motivated you or helped you as you were going through your hard times to keep you moving?
Well, I have some favorites. The one that comes to mind all the time is in Matthew 5. It's a part of the Beatitudes. I believe it's Matthew 5:14 or something like that. But it's ye are the light of the world. The city set on a hill cannot be hid. Neither do men put a light and put it under a bushel, but on a candlestick where it getteth light to all that are in the house. Let your light so shine before men that they may see your good works and glorify the God who is in heaven. Basically, it's ye are the light of the world. You're an example. The whole reason that you're on this planet is to do something significant so that you can bless the lives of other people. There's a book called The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen R. Covey, where he talks about the 7 habits. And if we have more time, I'd go through all those habits because they're great. But he has another book called The 8th Habit. And a lot of people don't know about that book because it wasn't quite as popular. But The 8th Habit is probably the most powerful book of all of them. You need to go through the first 7 habits first before you do the 8th habit. But the 8th habit is to find your voice. Find the reason you were put on this earth, and then for the rest of your life, help other people find their voice.
Ooh,
That's the 8th habit.
I love that.
Yeah. And that's kind of part of that, let your light so shine. You need to find what your light is, what your specific purpose is. And the thing is, people worry about it and fuss about it all the time. God doesn't care what you do for a living. I believe, this is my thought. I don't believe that God cares what you do for a living. He doesn't care specifically. A lot of times people like to put words in God's mouth. God wants you to be rich. God wants you to do this. God was no, you can't speak for God. God speaks to you in still small voice. God wants you to be honest and ethical. He wants you to be loving and service oriented. He wants you to do good on your own without thought of reward. But he lets you make a lot of your own choices. And as long as you're doing those things and being honest and ethical, you got a lot of freedom in what you choose to do. And you'll run into challenges in any career of trying to stay true to those principles and beliefs. But I think there's so many things that we can do in this world, so many things that God would approve of, but he doesn't force us to do anything. We get lots of choices. But I'm just so glad that I chose the path that I did, because I had to be in a career where I had the freedom of schedule, freedom of time. I couldn't work in a cubicle. I couldn't work in a job. I had to do something different. I had to have something where I could, one week I could be working on a charity. Another week I could be writing a book. Another week I could be traveling. Another week I could be working with kids. I want to have the freedom to do whatever I need to do when I need to do it.
That's beautiful. And you've inspired others to follow their dreams as well. So you're applying that eighth principle.
Find your voice.
Oh, well, this has been so fun, Daren. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom from financial woes to overcoming the obstacles of disease and huge mountain. Oh my goodness, you're just such an inspiration and helping us realize the importance of setting goals in the right order. This has been so amazing. I really appreciate you taking the time to share this with us.
Thank you for the opportunity. I love you. I just absolutely, since I met you at these book conferences, I just think you're a remarkable person. You have so much energy, so much light for people. You have such a giving heart. I just see you when we're at these conferences. You just want to help people. You want to reach out and then afterwards, got to be mother hen to pull them all together and help them continue with their goals. Because it's not what happens at the book conferences; it's what happens after.
Yes.
You got to keep going with it. And so you've inspired so many people to keep going to their dream, and I really admire you for that.
Oh, well, thank you. You can connect with Daren Falter on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. You can go to his website, darenfalter.com, and find more out about him or his book, which is on Amazon. Thanks for joining us today. Hope on. Hey, thanks so much for listening to today's show. I know that there are many of you out there that are going through a hard time, and I hope you found things that have been useful today as you listen to the podcast. If you would like to access the show notes from today's podcast, visit my website. It is storiesofhopepodcast.com. That is where you'll find favorite quotes from today's episode and shareable memes. And those are fun because you can share them with your friends on social media. You will also find the links mentioned throughout today's episode so you don't have to remember what those were. And also all the tips that were shared. Sometimes tips are shared so much throughout an episode you forget. What were those great things? So go to the show notes, storiesofhopepodcast.com, to look up these fantastic resources. If someone kept coming to mind during today's episode, perhaps that means that you should share this with them. Maybe there was a story shared or a tip that they really, really need to hear. So go ahead and share this episode with them. May God bless you, especially if you are struggling, with hope to carry on and with the strength to keep going when things get tough. Remember to walk with Christ, and He will help bear that burden. Above all else, remember, God loves you.